The iPad Air 2020, and arguably the most anticipated iPad release thus far. There are so many colors, and we have brought you the most popular versus the most established, the sky blue versus the space gray. And we are not stopping there. We are going to address those storage options. We are going to compare it and see how it looks against the competitors. And we're also going to see what the lag is like when note-taking. So buckle up and enjoy.
Okay guys, let's do this. The Spae Gray version, let's quickly unbox it, and you will be greeted with some documentation as always, what to do and how to start up quickly with your iPad and how to get going in several languages if you like. You have the SIM card removal tool because I do have the LTE version for the Spae Gray here, and then you have your Apple stickers, which is a nice touch. And ooh, look, there's something else in the box here with the iPad, and that's a power brick, a 20-watt charging brick, as well as a USB-C cable. And that's good because you know what, the iPad Air now has a USB-C port. So look, before we go any further, I really want to address the elephant in the room here, and that is the storage configuration you can get for the iPad Air 2020. And not many people have talked about that yet, and I don't know why, but let's put it on the table here. When you go for the cheapest version, the 64 GB storage, you will only end up with 47 usable gigabyte of storage then for whatever you want to install or download. So you really have to make your mind up before you go out and purchase which version, or in fact which iPad you really want to go for. Because when you look at that comparison here, the iPad Air 2020 doesn't offer you the sweet spot of 128 GB. And it's almost like going into a shoe store and saying, okay, for a man, the most popular size is 9. Well, tough luck, you don't get it here. Or for women, 7 or 8, not available. Unless, of course, you go for the iPad Pro. And when you look at the price difference here, you have $749 for the 256 GB version versus $799 for the 128 GB version on the iPad Pro. You really have to kind of think about that, right? So if you want to spend another $50 US, if that doesn't matter to you, I mean, money always matters, but if you are basically can do it, then I seriously would consider doing it.
Let's go.
Whilst we are on the subject of money, I really want to get into the accessories briefly. And the reason being is I have seen reviews mentioning that the pencil comes in the box and so on and so forth. And since the device is really aimed at college students or students in general, I want to make sure that everybody understands what they get themselves into when they buy into the Apple ecosystem, because there is an additional cost if you want to stay true to that ecosystem. When we look at the device cost itself, $599. Okay, we know that so far. The pencil, the Apple Pencil 2nd generation, $129. So, cha-ching. Then you have the Magic Keyboard, which also is an additional cost. It is a superb keyboard, but it costs you $299. Cha-ching again. The overall cost here, you can see it's over $1,000, and that is without tax, depending on where you live in the US. And of course, there are cheaper third-party options out there. I just want to be as transparent as possible. Let's move on to the design. And what I can tell you, as soon as I took it out of the box, it didn't resemble an iPad Air as I know it anymore. But that's not a bad thing. The first thought I had, it looks like an iPad Pro 11-inch, and I would say an iPad Pro SE. And the bezels are slightly thicker. You can't really tell that much. And if you are familiar with that design, then you know what's going to come now. You have your SIM card tray on the top. You have your Apple Pencil where you put it there. Then you have your volume rockers. And then you have your power on and off button with the fingerprint sensor. And then you have your speaker grills, and we will put it all to the test with other devices so you can really hear the difference, or if there is any difference. And then you have your USB-C port. The first thing I did, however, was the fingerprint sensor, well, basically setting up the fingerprint. And I used my right index finger because I'm so used to that, and that was kind of the wrong way to go about it. That was awkward when I tried to unlock it because I went the wrong way around, so it seemed or felt. So I used my left index finger, and that made it easier. And here I'm kind of demonstrating how fast the fingerprint sensor is when you basically have it on the table, or the iPad Air on the table, and pick it up and then just have your finger on there. So kind of really, it's not the fastest, but it's also not the slowest. It's kind of okay. Before we move on to the pen experience, I really would like to put things into perspective first. I am using the iPad Pro almost on a daily basis amongst other top-notch devices, right? Pay a lot more money for that. So I want to make sure you guys understand that, and I want to be as transparent as possible here, but I also want to show the things you get yourself into when you consider buying an iPad Air 2020. So look, taking notes with the iPad Air is really good. There's no issues here. I did feel a bit of lag, and if that matters to you, if latency matters to you, if you're like an illustrator, I don't know, then I'm going to freeze frame the following here. You can see there's a gap, right? And that's something you need to consider if you go for this device. And I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter to me because when I take notes, I really don't care. But if latency matters to you, then maybe you should investigate that further. But we'll do further tests also with other devices. We know Apple creates the most powerful chips for their iPads, right? For their tablet devices. And it's no difference here. A14 Bionic chip. Look at the Geekbench results. I put in the iPad Pro 2018 against it, and it exceeded in single core score. Multi-core score slightly behind. Antutu similar, but it just shows you how powerful that device already is. So what about all the color options? Well, let me get into the Spae Gray first here. And I have the iPad Pro available, only the bigger version though here, but you can see a difference. The Spae Gray is a bit darker and contrasty on the new iPad Air 2020 compared to the iPad Pro. But I didn't want to stop here. I also have the Tab S7 next to it. You can see the gray version of that. It's called Mystic Gray, I believe, and there's obviously a huge difference here already. What about the sky blue versus the Spae Gray version, right? I want to show you the difference here and make sure you guys understand what you're getting yourself into when you choose different color options. So I've chosen the respective wallpaper, sky blue on the top, Spae Gray on the bottom. And then look at the frames, right? The frames are also in the colors here, sky blue and then Spae Gray, and I'll turn it around quickly so you can see that. However, when you then turn it to the back, and that's probably the most important picture to you guys, I was a bit disappointed in the sky blue color. It is really light and feels a bit washed out. It wasn't as popping as I was hoping to, so I personally prefer the Spae Gray version. You may think differently and you may love all the other colors, including the sky blue, and you know what? Good for you. Design and colors is always subjective, but I hope I could give you some samples here to make an informed decision to help you guys. And if that is the case, if you enjoyed that video, please make sure you like and subscribe. So thank you for watching. Jens here, and Tony, of course, from All-Star Space, and stay tuned for our upcoming comparison with all the devices we have versus the iPad Air 4/2020.
Dolphin in the sea, rolling in the waves, flirting with the breeze. Got my sunny shades on, play my favorite song. Thankful for the charm, life rocking in my phone. I ain't looking for attention, I don't need the extra tension, cause I'm in the fourth dimension. Trapeze high in suspension. Now don't bother with the haters, cause they all be in